I'm more interested in inhabiting the battle, in risking to get dirty with mud. Because if you don't get dirty, if you just want to be complacent with the requirements of your community and you want to keep them happy, that is very limiting for your exploration as an artist and as a human being in general.
I'm so grateful for you making the time today to speak with me, Francesca. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's great to be with you.
No, I appreciate it. And I'm going to start with doing like a little bit of a fangirl moment, because I bought your book for my niece years ago. And when I said that I would be speaking with you, she was so excited. she has questions for you too. So there's questions I have to ask you also from her.
Okay, that sounds great. What's your niece's name?
Her name is Chloe.
Hello, Chloe.
Oh, sweet. That's super kind of you. But maybe I'll take a step back first and just ask you how you got into the kind of work that you're doing now, being a writer and a publisher and an activist, how that started for you.
Oh, it's a very interesting question, because I've been thinking a lot about this, because I am writing a memoir. So I believe that it started for me when I was a little girl. I grew up in a small town in southern Italy, and I had no notion that lesbians existed, that being queer was a possibility. So for very long, I found out that I was a lesbian when I was 23, which means that throughout my teenage years, I basically overwrote all the experiences that I was having, like, for example, the first time that I fell in love with a girl, or the first time that I wanted to kiss someone. I thought that was not possible. So I started to sort of rewrite my experiences in my head. And I used to think things like, being attracted to someone is a component of friendship. And these things, in some way, I know that it sounds crazy, but they didn't add up, because I had no representation whatsoever that this could be possible for me, that falling in love with one of my volleyball teammates could be a possibility. So it deprived me of all those experiences that could have been part of my growth, and they weren't. They were stolen from me by the lack of representation. So I remember, in particular, this one time, the first girl that I fell in love with was a volleyball teammate, and at one point she got together with a boy from our class. And because we were best friends, she would tell me everything of, what they did and when they were dating, when they were going out together. So she would put her pink towel outside the balcony if she was going out that night. And he would, pass by with his bicycle, and he would see if they were going out or not. And I remember that when she told me about this, I somehow felt that I was under that balcony too, but no one could see me. There were no signals for me because I was invisible. And so I believe that is where it started for me, this will to make the children who feel invisible feel visible, to feel seen, and to have an opportunity to see all the parts of themselves, all the parts of their identities reflected in the stories they read, in the cartoons they watch, in the movies they see at the theater or in television. That was when it started for me.
I think you have to get that memoir out there. Because you started saying, maybe that sounds strange. It's not strange at all. I can relate to exactly what you're explaining. And I would probably say I grew up with the same thing, but it took me even longer to realize that everything that I saw in movies and books and in the rest of my life actually didn't represent anything that I was feeling. But you don't even realize that until suddenly the curtain is opened and somebody shows you something that you can relate to. And then you suddenly realize, how did I exist for all this time without anything that I could see that made me feel like I could connect with that? And it is weird how we universalize things. So you look at love stories and you just think that that's a universal love story, but it's not, when you realize that you are different from that in important ways.
Yeah, it's really a great exercise to sort of write down your story and to see, because you were forced to put everything down on paper and to see links that you were unable to see before. So it's actually an exercise that, whether you publish it or not, I would recommend to anyone.
It's a great idea. And then you'll have to do updates though, because you're quite young. So if you're writing your memoir now, you publish it, you're going to have to update it on a regular basis. So we'll be seeing too.
That is actually a concern of mine, because part of, and I don't know if that's been your experience too, but part of what makes you a person who is alive and who is in search of their identity is the fact that you retell the story of your life many times, because there are parts of yourself that you don't know, that you have no visibility of. And then you grow up a little, you have more experiences, you experience loss, you experience fear, and then you change a little bit the narration of what happened in your life and how you were and why something happened. So one thing that I'm scared of in writing this book is, well, once I'm putting this black on white and I'm writing everything down, I am sort of saying this is the final version of the story of my life. And I want to sort of cultivate the freedom, even though I wrote it, to keep on changing it. So part of the challenge with writing a memoir, especially when you're just 38 years old, like I am, is this risk of sort of freezing that part of your life. And instead, part of what being alive and being in contact with the world around you, but also with the world within yourself, is to be available to keep on changing those narratives, because that is what allows you to make room for other people in your life. So that is actually something that I'm a little bit concerned with, because I am sure that I have so much still to learn and so much to unlearn about myself that I'm a little uneasy sometimes when I think about this book.
That's really interesting though, because, if I understand what you're saying, it's not just that, say, between 40 and 60, you change, but you also change the way you see what happened between 0 and 40. So I think if you write with that awareness and say, this is who I see myself as from then till now, but that can change. And then you can come back to it and rewrite those stories in 10 years from now and tell them in a different way. And that would be so interesting, actually, because then you would actually help people see the stories we tell about ourselves change over time also. So I'm going to go to the book that my niece loved, which is the Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, which I loved just from the title. As soon as I heard the title, I was like, yes, I'm going to get that for her, because I thought that was great. And there you are telling the stories of women's lives. How did you pick the women that you included in there?
So my co-author and I wanted to feature women from all over the world. So part of it, there were a few criteria. One was that we wanted to cover as many countries as possible. Another one, that we wanted to feature women from the present and from the past, because at the beginning we were like, should we just include women from the past? But we wanted these women to seem relatable. In other words, we wanted this book to allow our readers to recognize the rebel girls in their life. And this was part of the effort. And so we tried to combine women from the present and from the past. And the other thing was we wanted women from all sorts of different careers. So we wanted the scientists, we wanted the trombonists, we wanted the bakers, because we didn't want to narrow too much the idea of what success is, which is, in my opinion, part of the problem with a certain kind of feminist aspirational literature for children, that in telling girls you can be anything you want, they are actually very much narrowing down the possibilities of what they should want for themselves. So it's okay if you want to become president. It's okay if you want to become the CEO of a company. It's okay if you want to become an investor. Not that okay if you want to become a waitress. Not that okay if you want to become a baker. No, and I didn't want that, because it is, for me at least, personally, it's not enough to want power. You want, I would like for the girls who read my books, for the children in general who read my books, I don't want them to want power. I want them to want to change power. And that is a very big thing that sets apart my books and the books that I worked on, which is the first 2 volumes of Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, from a lot of other feminist aspirational literature that is that in a way also sprouted from the success of Rebel Girls. And in many cases, I see that some people just want to replicate the patriarchal system, but they want women to lead it. And that's not really what I'm interested in, because I'm interested in dismantling the system and in building a different system, an alternative system. Actually, I'm interested in making the current system obsolete. And that is why I decided to work and to dedicate my time and my career to children's literature, because in my opinion, it's the thing that really allows you to create the foundation for a different future.
So Undercats Media is the company that you run now. And the tagline is something like, "You don't see us coming." You never see us coming. I love that. That's great. So is that part of dismantling the current system, is through that literature? You don't see us coming. We're not even the underdogs. We're the undercats.
Yes.
But we're going to tell new stories in different ways and inspire young people to see how the world could be different.
Yes, absolutely. And it is what I always tell my team is the process is the product. So this is another part of how I believe. So as an entrepreneur, when I parted ways with Rebel Girls, I had I could see 2 possibilities in front of me. One was to get a super agent and to pursue the career of a writer, right? I had this big success under my belt. I could land probably a very good deal. But I would find myself in a system that, in my opinion, is broken. So I could make that system work for me because I had the luck of landing one big title. But the other path that I could sort of see was to keep on inhabiting the publishing space in this guerrilla style, where you don't you sort of give up on the ego part of pretending that an artist's career is always onwards and upwards, that you go from a success to a bigger success and to an even bigger success. This is what agents are for, right? They try to mitigate a little bit the roller coaster which is the life of any human being, including artists. And they try to pretend in front of the public, they put up this pretend game in front of the public that, you are a very important author. And now, of course, if you did this, now you have to do that. And then you have, and that's very limiting. And it is part of serving this patriarchal system that is a battle of egos. And when I was very close to signing with an amazing agent in New York, and then I decided not to do it. I decided to start investing my own money into Undercats and assembling this little team of stray cats, basically. And I hired a person that was working in Nigeria for a startup incubator there. I hired an editor who is in a small town in the south of England. I hired another person who is in Milan. And little by little, we put together this weird team, and we started experimenting with the things that we wanted to do. And it's not easy because I went back to Kickstarter. I raised way less than I had raised with my previous projects, which would be a very tough defeat in a way, right? Because you are exposing to the public, and we panic when we're like, what people think? What will people think that I raised less money than I did with Rebel Girls now? Does it mean that I don't have it anymore? It means that I'm alive. I am trying things. I am trying to do things that no one does. And if I was trying things that everyone else was doing, I would have given up on my initial mission of creating things for those children that feel invisible. They feel invisible because no one is telling their stories. And no one is telling their stories not because they are ugly and evil. They are not telling their stories because they don't believe there is a market for them. But if you are that child feeling invisible in front of that balcony, you don't care that you are not a viable market. That's your story. You have a right to see it told.
Can you tell me about some of the stories that you're working on now through Undercats?
Sure. Well, first of all, we published one book. Basically, during the first wave of the pandemic, I wrote a short story because I got very worried that there were a couple of things that were bothering me. One was that when at the beginning of the coronavirus epidemic, we understood quite soon that it wasn't very dangerous for children, right? And despite the fact that children had their routines completely disrupted by the virus, like everyone else, grown-ups were consuming staggering amounts of information on TV, in newspapers, everywhere. We were reading obsessively about the virus. And we were not reading because we needed more information necessarily, but we wanted to have a sense that we knew more or less where this was going. For children, there was nothing like that. Because the only communication that was dedicated to children was like, you have to wash your hands. This is what a virus is, which is not, we were sort of having a very big disconnect with the fact that children too needed to know where this was going. And no one was telling them. And because we just thought it doesn't matter. They are happy that they're not in school. They're playing video games all day long while I have to work. I have to make dinner for them. So we were like too much in our heads. So that was one thing that I wanted to reach out to my little readers to tell them what was going on, to tell them that I was there with them, that I wanted to give them a story to understand more or less where they were. The other thing was that I was very concerned with the surge of anti-Asian racism. And every time, of course, in the United States with Trump was constantly talking about this Chinese virus. But also in Italy, there was something similar. So I grew worried that children may sort of create a very dangerous equivalence between an Asian-looking face and the virus that had caused the upheaval of their family routines or their family habits. And this is the worst kind of racism, because when you grow up, you don't remember why you don't feel like you can trust Asian people. But it's very deeply rooted within you. So I wanted them to sort of have a counter narrative to this. So I decided to create this very short story called Dr. Lee and the Crown-Wearing Virus, which was a short story telling the story of Dr. Li Wenliang, who was the first hero of this pandemic. And he was the Chinese doctor who raised the alarm that a novel coronavirus was spreading in Wuhan, China. And he risked to go to jail for it. And then eventually he died from coronavirus. So I put together this short story and I made it downloadable for free on my website. I didn't do any, there was no plan, no marketing plan. It was just, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was in lockdown. I wanted to reach out to my readers. I just posted this link on my Facebook profile and that was it. And the story became viral. It was translated by volunteers into 38 languages. It was downloaded in 3 weeks more than 60,000 times. And it was covered by newspapers all over the world. It was censored by the Chinese government. It was an interesting ride. And then some of the people that had downloaded the story told me, we would like to have a book with this story because I want to create a time capsule for my children about this year. And I would want them to have this story in a book format. And so we launched the first Kickstarter campaign, and Dr. Lee and the Crown-Wearing Virus is the first book that we published. Then we decided to work on a book, on a picture book series called Paralympians, which is the first picture book series ever featuring the story of 4 amazing Paralympic athletes of our time. And the first book, which came out a couple of months ago, it's called Fastest Woman on Earth. And it's a story of Russian-American wheelchair racer Tatiana McFadden. And it's very cool because Tatiana's mom wrote the introduction. And the book is illustrated by a Mexican artist whose name is Luis San Vicente. And then the second book in the series, which will be out in February, is called The Long Jump, and is a story of a sprinter, long jumper, French African, Jean-Baptiste Allez. And then the third book will be dedicated to an Italian fencer, Beatrice Vio. And the fourth book would be called The Archer, and it's a story of an Iranian archer. And the pool of the illustrators is a Mexican artist that I said before. The Long Jump is illustrated by a Black Canadian painter, Kes Nadals. The third book, On Guard, is illustrated by a Pakistani illustrator, Malia Abidi. And the fourth book is illustrated by a disabled Colombian illustrator, Valentina Toro. So this is what I mean when I say that the process is the product. And this is the reason why I didn't want to just sell the rights to whatever I wrote to a traditional publisher, because this is not how traditional publishers work. But while we select the people that we work with, we are sort of deciding to create our network in a certain direction. We are choosing to learn how to work with different people, and we are making our relationships with these other people from all over the world part of what goes into the book. And this is because, in my opinion, you can't teach anything that you don't need to learn yourself. So part of the reason why I chose to do this Paralympians book series is to work on the ableism that I had interiorized growing up. And I am learning so much. And I'm basically, in every book that we make, we open up our learning process to our readers rather than schooling them on what is and isn't appropriate to say or do.
I'm going to ask you, because I think we are talking around it through the work that you've done. But if I ask you explicitly about vulnerability and what that means to you, either for you personally or for the things that you choose to write about or the people that you choose to work with, what does vulnerability mean to you?
To me, it means don't pretend to be in a place where you're not. That is what vulnerability is to me. And we are living in a world where we are constantly called to pretend that we are some place that we're not in. So on social media, we want to portray our lives as always being cool. We want to always look beautiful and always look successful and all. And sometimes you are in a place where you feel successful, and you shouldn't be afraid of that, of sharing your joy with other people. But some other times we're not in that place, and we shouldn't pretend that we are. So, and because I think that pretending has a way of you start doing it for other people, and then you lose track of where you actually are, and you are unable to distinguish what you're doing for other people and what you're doing for yourself. And you sort of lose track of where you are, and you risk of being disconnected from your true self, or you risk to never find out what your true self is and all the complexities that we are able to hold within ourselves. Mm-hmm. But before, when I was talking about Undercats books, I forgot to mention the book that we put out for Christmas, which is called Elves on the Fifth Floor. And this is actually the first book that I wrote after parting ways with Rebel Girls. And I wrote it in Italian first, and it was published at the end of 2019 in Italy, and it became the first bestseller for kids starring a lesbian family. And the story is very magical. It's the quintessential Christmas adventure. There is this family that moves to the city of R a few days before Christmas because a newly elected president in their home country declared homosexual families illegal. So they move to the city of R because it's a city where nothing bad ever happens. The problem, and what they find out when they get there, is that in order to prevent anything bad from happening, the inhabitants of R make sure that nothing at all ever happens there. You should never talk to strangers, because every time you talk to a stranger, something unexpected could happen. But the kids of R want to challenge this culture created by the grown-ups, and they start a clandestine radio. So these are the premises of this story that I wrote because I love the holidays, and I come from a very big stereotypical Southern Italian family. And when I was a child, I really wanted to see a family like the one that I dreamt of building in the movies, in the books that I was reading. And I could always only find traditional families with a mom and a dad. And I thought it would be great if some children could see the rituals of a family with two moms, and how they drink coffee and how they do certain things that are very simple things. But since we're not used to see them, people concoct in their imagination some terrifying scenes as if, you were having dinosaurs, T-Rex living together. And instead, no, it's just humans that love each other.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.